I trust you to do what is right. And that's what he's saying. Entrust him. Deposit your faith in him for safekeeping. This is exactly what Paul said he did as he wrote to young Timothy. Look at this in 2 Timothy 1. For this reason I also suffer these things. Paul suffered, and he mentions it here. For this reason I also suffer these things, but I'm not ashamed. Wow, there it is. Don't be ashamed. We've already learned that, didn't we? Paul said, I'm not ashamed, for I know. I like that certainty, don't you? I know, Paul said. I know whom I have believed. I like what he said there too, don't you? He didn't say, I know what I believe. No, not what I know whom I believe. I know him. It's a personal relationship, you see. It's not just religion, it is a relationship. Paul had it. For this reason I also suffer these things, but I'm not ashamed, for I know whom I have believed. Now look at this. And I am convinced that he is able. Are you convinced that he is able? I am convinced that he is able to guard what I have entrusted. There's the same word. The same word that is in our verse 19 of 1 Peter 4, where he says, entrust your souls to faithful Creator and know he's able to do right. I am convinced that he is able to guard what I have entrusted to him until that day. What day? The day Jesus Christ is glorified. And we are glorified with him. We get new bodies that are glorified with him on that day. And Paul said, I have entrusted. Yes, I'm suffering, but I'm not ashamed, for I know whom I have believed. And I am convinced he is able to keep that which I have banked with him, entrusted to him against that day. Remain faithful in fiery trial. Don't sit down on God. Don't fall out of the race. Stay in there. Remain faithful. Be committed. Commitment is not a single action. It is a continual attitude. It is day by day. You see, God will allow you to go through a fiery trial. Because just like the steel in that, or the iron ore in that ladle, before it could become steel, the dirt, the impurities, the slag had to come out of it. Because Youngstown Steel Mill could not produce steel beams or whatever they were going to produce with slag in it, impurities in it. It would be a mess. It would not be strong. And God is working in your life and in mine. And sometimes we go through the heat. And sometimes it's not fun. And God never promised it would all be fun and games. He never promised that. But he did promise his presence, his power. And he taught us in the scripture that we can rejoice and have joy, even in the midst of the trials. You see, God is more interested in your character than in your comfort. He is more interested in your character than in your comfort. I'm into comfort, you know. Give me my recliner and a cup of coffee and my dog. I'm into comfort. I got it made, you know. Right here, God says, no, Carl, you can't stay in this recliner all day. Get out of here and go face the day. And some days you don't want to. And some days it ain't pretty. That's not good English. But it's not, you know, some days it's just that way. But God says, this is my way. and I'm loving you. And is God against comfort? Oh no. Oh no. And he will allow you some of that in your life too. And is God against you enjoying life? Oh no. He will give you richly many things to enjoy. But listen, he will also, I've told this to my kids many times, God is putting iron in your soul. You know, sometimes your kids are going through something, and as a dad, boy, you'd like to just take them right out of it, you know? And you just like to rescue them, and you can't. And I remember saying to them, God is putting iron in your soul. He's pulling the slag out of you, and he's purifying you, and he's making sure that all that is in that ladle that will come pouring out to make that steel. And it was a beautiful sight when they tipped that ladle up, and whew, oh man, liquid steel came pouring out of that thing. It was an incredible sight. And it was just something, you know, it was so massive and so awesome that you just never forget it. And God is putting iron in your soul. I've said many times. Remain faithful. Remain faithful to God. God, through his servant Peter, was helping those people back in the 60s. Not 1960s, AD 60s. And unleashed upon the early church was persecution. We still know about some of it that came today. And the Christians who died for their faith. And through the ages, the church has gone through some difficulties and still is to this day. And we have this wonderful freedom but right now in America and so forth. But still, sometimes you suffer for the name of Christ and whatever. And we go through things, and God uses those things to change us. Remain faithful. Just decide, you know what? I'm going to realize it's coming. I'm going to rejoice. I'm going to re-examine. I'm going to refuse to be ashamed. I'm going to remember the reward. I'm going to remain faithful. You see, decisions determine destiny. Decisions determine destiny.